Iain, as always, welcome back to RaithTV. We've spoken many times over the duration of your time with Raith Rovers, and certainly with RaithTV in its kind of 15th year or so for myself. We've had a lot of conversations. In this one we're going to focus on one subject in particular, and that's Iain Davidson. A very particular reason for that, and that being your testimonial on Friday. How are you looking forward to it?
I'm looking forward to it very much so. It's been a long time coming. I thought we weren't going to get there again this season due to the circumstances that are happening in the world right now. But I'm just glad it's now getting done. It's a pity that we couldn't get more people in the door, because I'm quietly confident we could have got at least maybe around 3,000. I mean, Hibs is one of the big clubs in Scotland, and I like to think there'd be a lot of Raith Rovers fans turned up as well. So there's a sense of frustration there as well, that it can't be under normal circumstances, especially see what's happening in England the last few days there at Wimbledon and Wembley, but obviously we're different from England. So, but no, I'm just glad that it's getting done, and it's been a great response from the tickets going on sale last week, and to get 1,000 sold is pleasing. It's really pleasing, and I'm looking forward to it. And yeah, I'm just looking forward to a nice send off and in a way saying thank you to the Raith Rovers faithful, really.
So we'll have tickets are sold. It's a sellout in terms of the 1,000. There's a donate a ticket where there's lots of kind of raffles going on, and of course we've got RaithTV. We'll be covering the pay-per-view as well, so we'll get the details up on that. I'm glad you got the memo to wear the green Hibs top today. Well done. Wasn't sure if the text message had got to you.
Yeah, it's got a few Hibbies, so I'll keep them happy. But no, I'm straight off the golf course, so hence the reason why I'm in a golf polo.
So we've got a career covering 507 games, 2 stints. Numerous managers, highs, lows, drama, chaos, mayhem, and indeed some very memorable victories. So I was trying to come up with a plan to see how do you cover all of that, and it might be a wee bit of a disjointed trip down memory lane, but I think let's kick off at the beginning. And the question that you probably get asked most in your footballing career is, or the name you hear the most is Claude Anelka. Let's start with Claude, and I guess the question is, we know how it came to be. Tell us about your lasting memory of the man and the situation you found yourself within.
Interesting man, but as regards an actual man himself, a genuinely nice man that people actually didn't see, but he was obviously judged and based on the football situation at the club that unfortunately went badly wrong as regards his recruitment and the way it went round. So no, the football memories are obviously ones you want to forget, and I think a lot of Raith Rovers fans would. I'm always reminded I'm an Anelka signing, which is a fact and true. But yeah, just as I say, I remember the sort of first week of pre-season. It was an eye-opener, sort of training with these gentlemen and these so-called players. So yeah, I kind of knew, even 20-year-old at the time, I knew that we were in for a sort of long season unless these things got addressed, and obviously it was, as we know, it turned out to be a bit of a sad season for us. But as I say, Claude, as regards an actual person, was a good man. I think he had good intentions at Raith Rovers. I mean, he invested a lot of money into the club, but he obviously just got the infrastructure badly wrong, really, or he should have been better advised. And at the end of the day, he'd been his brother's agent, if I'm right, and he's obviously earned a lot of money. So a bit. No, it was sad to see that it didn't go right, and as I say, I think a lot of Raith Rovers people like to keep that in the past, and it's something I like to as a player.
I mean, I spent quite a bit of time with him, and went down to London to meet him a few years ago for one of your features, and I think his description at the time was, you quickly realise that professional football from the real inside and from the manager's room is an absolute wolf that quickly turns on you. It's quite a game from the inside, isn't it?
It is. People don't understand what it takes and how much hard work goes into it. It's always easy looking in with the best players in the world sitting in the stand watching a football match. Sometimes I get like that. I should know that because I'm suspended quite a lot, but it's easy to get caught up. But when you're involved in that football pitch, it's a total different game for what you're seeing on a stand. And as I say, I think Claude, unfortunately, was basically a bit of a rookie in that role, would be the right thing to say. But I was sad for him because he was a good man and he was good to me and he signed me. But as I say, he just got it badly wrong as regards his recruitment, bringing these French people over. He later on went to hear where they were supposedly family connected, friends. And you could tell that in training and stuff in an 11-side game that these guys weren't the deal, unfortunately. And as I say, it didn't last too long.
Started off so glamorously. You were the Scottish Brewers Cup champions within 2 games. A goal in the final. Is that a medal that's in the middle of your mantelpiece?
Yeah, it's hanging on the wall, yeah. Not. But no, that's actually, it's not until you say that, I've got a memory like a sieve bit that you bring that up. I remember the weekend away down at Annan, and it was a nice weekend because we done well. So yeah, it's always okay when you're winning. But that was my first involvement there at the weekend away with Claude and the boys and stuff. But yeah, it was a nice moment.
A quick wake-up call when we played Albion Rovers in the Cup. There's a quite famous picture yourself and a great pal of RaithTV's that starts pretty much every home game, Mark Yardley, absolutely ragdolling these French lads about that I don't think they'll have seen the likes.
There's a photo that I think I still actually have that in a frame of myself and Mark Yardley, who was a few sizes bigger than me, with the greatest respect to Mark. And yeah, it's a photo action that I'll never forget. It was an early memory, and yeah, that was the debut against Starks against Mark Yardley, who was a fair size young man. What
about some of the figures that were on the kind of periphery? I kind of watched that unfold from the stands. The kind of PA lad Sticks, what was his role? Did you see a lot of him in and around the training? There seemed to be a very unusual level of opportunity for the guy.
As regards Sticks, he was, again, I would say definitely an interesting character, a bit of a Del boy. It's a nice term maybe. He was on the phone, you would see him running about, he was on the training pitch, he'd be bounced about in the changing room, but as regards his football knowledge, it wasn't the best. So that was definitely, that guy called Sticks was, as I say, why he was there, I was still love to know to this day. So, but he just seemed to be a Claude and Elka friend, I think, more than anything, that was behind the scenes and bouncing about there at the time.
A couple of really well respected guys came in during that time. We know that Dave Martin had a role in your journey to Sunderland, back to Scotland and so forth, but 2 other guys that we would have trusted implicitly were John Hollins, and Gordon Wallace was around a bit at the time as well, wasn't he?
I think Gordon was there in the background, yeah.
How did they communicate, particularly with you Scottish lads, in terms of what was unfolding? Because these are guys who really understand the game. We all think we're experts, we all pretend to know about the game, but you're quickly found out when you're in the company of these guys and they start talking football.
Again, when John Hollins had came in, I'd actually done a wee bit of research on the gentleman himself and then realised who he was, and obviously I was a bit of a younger as to regards him, but I remember having a conversation with him, and it was strange because I was only 20-year-old at the time, and we had a bit of a 1-to-1, and I was like, John, I says, this is like very amateurish here, this is not how a football club should be, like organised, prepared and run. These guys were, I remember maybe it was a bounce game during the week one point at Starks Park, and there was maybe half an hour to go, and the French lads weren't here yet. And I was like, John, I says, we need to address this situation. And he's like, at the end of the day, it's Claude's club, it's Claude's money and that. And he's like, and I think even John Hollins at the time just felt surplus to requirements, and he was like we've got no chance type of thing. So I think even for John Hollins, it was a bit of an eye-opener coming from his background and having a successful career down in England. So even when I remember saying having that 1-to-1 with him, he was in for a shock, and I'd say I think John didn't last too long either.
Yeah. Did you hear at the time that Sky had approached looking to do a documentary, almost the kind of Kirkcaldy version of the Kardashians, that had it actually come off? What a document that would be, wouldn't it?
I think that would have been very good for the ratings, I think, actually, as regards in football terms. So that would have been actually, that's a bit of disappointment now hearing that didn't happen for us. So yeah, that would have been nice to have been part of that, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, the players there was a revolving door of players at the time. There was some come in with a wee bit of experience. There was 1 or 2 who picked up injuries who were probably the better players. I think Jose Chimbala, who had played for Guinea and so forth, but never actually played a game for Raith Rovers, I don't think. What's your knowledge like of your teammates of that time?
The greatest respect, very vague, because you always remember players with ability that stand out, and unfortunately, with the greatest respect to these French guys, none of them didn't really have that. I think I've said that numerous times. I think if Claude had done his homework a bit better and his recruitment, as I said, he just brought far too many over, and it was just a failure from the beginning. But with the greatest respect, not anyone really stands out as regards the French boys. I think there was a couple of them that went on to maybe last the season under Gordon Dalziel towards the end of that season, and maybe wanted to stay and played their part. But I think as soon as Gordon came in, I think most of them moved on, if I'm right, so it's obviously a long time ago. But no, as I say, as regards my memories, as the French boys, unfortunately they're not very good.
Well, I think we'll put that to the test. Iain, I'm going to give you some names. Is this a lad that you played with, or is this a lad who you didn't play with? If you are so inclined, you can answer Claude or Fraud, it's up to you. But first name I'm going to give you is Amar Benassai.
Fraud.
You played with him. Bilal Hassani.
Fraud.
Fraud. Represented France at the Eurovision Song Contest. Nsimba Lusamba.
Fraud.
Claude. You played alongside him. Only played one game. Gregory Bourde.
Fraud.
You're right. You should have got that. It's a French golfer.
Oh, sorry.
I'll give you one more. What about Amar Benassai? We've done. What about Mejdi Alujdi?
Claude. Do you remember that name?
Absolutely.
What was his position?
He was a midfield player, if I remember properly. And we'll round it up to 6. Maurice Garan.
Oh, the name Maurice rings a bell, but I'm going to go Claude.
Fraud. Won the first ever Tour de France, but maybe you felt like you could have played with some of the guys now about 130 years old. You might have matured into players there.
Maybe better off with some of the guys playing.
You mentioned though that Claude himself, you know, a decent guy, and I think that's, for me, having spent a bit of time with him, that's a wee bit of a footnote that probably should differentiate us from kind of more rabid football fans, that the damage was done, and we'll speak about the recovery that you've been such a kind of vital part of, but we all live and learn, don't we?
We do that, as I say, as regards as a man and a gentleman. He was a good guy, but unfortunately they just got the football side of it wrong, sadly.
Tell us a wee bit about Gordon Dalziel and Sean Dennis. I mean, if we're talking about football and characters, they don't really come much bigger. And also in terms of Raith Rovers' true quality, what was it like in the dressing room with these two guys?
Couple of interesting characters again, two guys that are definitely not shy. Dazza's not shy in talking about himself, as I think the majority of people know. Sean I got on really well with. I think being a Kirkcaldy boy and myself, we after trainings and stuff, we would have a few conversations. I would ask Sean about his pastimes as a player at Hibs and Raith and things like that. I think Sean won't mind me saying back in his day he come from a very, very big drinking culture. After training they would go for a right drink, but that didn't exist in my time coming through football. So no, I got on really well with Sean. Mr. Gar's Daz, I think there was a great buzz and excitement when he came back. Legendary status as a player, and probably go down as one of the best ever, doing what he done with that League Cup. So, but again, probably Daz damaged limitations with the greatest respect to him. So nah, it was a big tough call for Daz, and again, probably he would have maybe like to have worked out a lot better than what it did, but I think he'll always be known as a legendary player, and same with Sean really. So, but not two guys that I respect enormously for what they've done for the football club, and obviously I see a bump into Sean now and again, obviously because he's more local, but Dad's obviously been an Ayrshire boy, very rarely see. So, but no, I think they had their hands tied really when they took over the job and they tried their best. So that is what it was at the time.
You move on quite quickly from the Anelka experiment, if we can call that, to actually having Craig Levine leading the line, albeit kind of very briefly, and that's, I guess, where we move on from damage limitation to actually rebuilding. What was that like?
Impressions with Craig were very, very impressive. Again, I think straight away this guy struck me as though he knows what he's doing as regards organisation, detail, preparation, things like that. He had a good football career. He had been doing well, just come from Leicester. Obviously it didn't work out there, but again he, I think, sort of laid the foundations and started the rebuilding job and sort of put things in place for then John McGlynn to come in really. So obviously it would have been nice to have a bit longer of Craig, but I think as soon as Craig come in you could see there was slowly but surely it was kind of getting there, so being decent and then at least being a professional outfit type of thing. So yeah, and obviously at the end of the day he went on to do really well at Dundee United.
And of course Craig's lasting kind of impact for Raith Rovers was the recommendation of John McGlynn. What was your first kind of memory of John McGlynn coming through the doors at the players' entrance? Somewhat of a kind of unknown quantity in some respects at the time, obviously known through his youth work at Hearts and the kind of younger teams, but very much hit the ground running in all areas and every aspect of the club. What do you recall of John coming in?
And first impressions was he's a very enthusiastic man that did not shy away from hard work, and results suggested what he was about. And as I say, it didn't take too long for us to sort of shoot up the league and become more respected, really, under John. A man that I have so much respect for, and I owe a lot of gratitude for him. I've spent most of my footballing career with, really, at the end of the day, 2 spells at Raith. So as a guy that I hold very, very high in my life and always will, and a bit of a father figure really as well. I never really had that, so John was good for me as well. So, but no, I just found that this was a man that wanted results and wanted to do well, and again that went on to be the case.
What is it about John and Paul that I'm always struck with this? Players of the kind of relative recent past and current players, even players just coming into the team, even this season, the one thing that they're saying is their enthusiasm to come and work at Raith Rovers and work with John and Paul to become better football players, and some have said even kind of better people. What is it that John and Paul collectively bring that gets you on side and keeps you feeling so cared for?
I just think, first and foremost, I think they treat you well as a human being. I'm always a big person, whether it was the kit man or Linda the cleaner or June the laundry person. You say hi to these people, or the girls in the office, Laura, Lynn, whoever it may be. You respect everybody in the building. I remember Sir Alex Ferguson saying something about that when he was at Man United, and it was something that always stuck in my head. So you treat people, everybody the same, regardless who they are at a football club. And Raith Rovers being a family club, I think it's important that the players connect with that as well. But what John does is he treats you right, he makes you feel welcome, and I think by doing that he gets you on side straight away with him. And under a John McGlynn, you have to be fit, you have to be a very fit player. But John, I think, gets the best out of his players as well. That's what I've tended to found, that he's got the best out of his players and made them even better. But as I say, it's there to prove, to see, and I think when the Raith Rovers fans got him back for the second time, they realised again, probably at that time, that was what you needed, and again, kicked on from that. We'll probably go into that later on, but no, I just think he just gets a connection, a relationship. Majority of times, not every player works out, that's just a fact, but majority of times he does, John. And Smudger's the more sort of the one in between players at times, where the manager has to make that vital call. He's the one that's more intense, and Smudger's a bit more relaxed one. So you always need that sidekick, and at the end of the day, both of them have worked really well for each other.
Success certainly came, we kind of pushed close to the first season, but after kind of watching, my last memory is being in the boot room kind of post one particular match when we kind of heard what appeared to be Ayr United celebrating the league in March. We then went on a quite incredible run of 9 games unbeaten, 8 wins, a draw in the last game at Arbroath. What do you recall of that time? It culminated with winning the league at Hampden. I mean, for players playing outside the Premier League, does it get any better than that?
Listen, it's the most probably iconic stadium in Scotland for us. It's our national stadium, and to do it there was just nice. It was wonderful. It's obviously a lasting memory that I'll never forget. I knew the business was done when I heard our fans celebrating. Again, back in those days, I think it was sort of more radio, was it, probably? And yeah, you could just tell for the stands what had happened, and it then come onto the pitch and knew sort of the job was done. But touching back on what you said, the thing that stuck out in my mind more than anything was when Ayr United beat us at home, celebrating like they had won the league at final whistle, and it was something I thought, okay, that's fine. And it's just something that lasted me for the rest of that season, the remaining games, and I'm kind of glad they done what they done, because for us individually, as a team and a group, it's just something that probably a reaction that we got, and to go on that run at the right stage of the season was so important. With greatest respect, it would have been nice to have won the last game, but we know it was a bit of a washout at home to Arbroath, is it? I think if we hadn't won the league, the game wouldn't have been on. It was an absolute swamp. But no, to go on that run at that crucial stage of the season was very, very good. It was a big ask, but again, we're glad to get over the finishing line, and I think we were the best team in that league in that season, and that proved to be the case.
I've asked John about it in the past, and he's quickly told me off. Where the notion that something happens, and that old mantra of we'll pin that in the dressing room wall. His view is no, we'll approach every game as ultimate professionals, and we'll be prepared as John. But did that actually mean anything throughout your career? That there's moments where you think, yep, that's an extra edge that I need.
Sometimes you just need that extra edge as an individual or as a group of players or even the management staff, things like that. And it was surprising to see their celebrations because, correct me if I'm wrong, did they only go 2 points ahead of us or something maybe at the time when they beat us with those 9 games to go? But I think it was mentioned in the change room afterwards, and then I think towards the end, did we play Brecon maybe towards the end of that run? And I think there was an interview by a Brecon player as well that again it just kind of got our backs up a little bit, saying that he suggested that Ayr United were the better team. So again, when you see these things, and it'll continue to happen, it always just gives players and teams an extra incentive. So sometimes I don't understand why players do it, really.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a high. We'll come back to Hampden for the next high, and that's a semi-final appearance against Dundee United. I mean, an incredible journey. You only played the one game in that cup run, carrying an injury at the time.
That was, I think, the one bad season, the season that I had in football that I suffered really bad with injuries. Again, I think I'll remember, I think it was Jason Thompson's brother, Danny Thompson, would that be right, Davey? Yeah, I think done all that pre-season, first home league game against Falkirk. I came off injured, I think tore my medial, and Danny come on for me to score the winner. So that's how I always kind of remember. So, and I think we had a bad winter, ended up breaking my foot with a challenge with Grant Murray. At Heriot Watt with one of the bad winters indoor, and then I think I came back again and then done my medial. So that was the one bad season, and I missed the sort of all the cup runs leading up to it. I mean, I think the one that stands out most is probably Dundee away, isn't it, really, with Laurie and is it Simi that scores? So yeah, I think, I mean, I felt like a fan that day, and it was just an amazing scenes. But no, I think there was a wee bit of sense of frustration that I didn't play a bigger part in the Scottish Cup run. But listen, to lead the boys out in the semi-final was probably been one of the proudest and biggest achievements of my life, to see 8,000-9,000 Rovers fans come through that day. We got off to a great start in the actual game without scoring, so that's the difference when you play these teams, that when your chances come along you have to take them, and then sadly we got punished. But listen, I think it was to get to the semi-final, a national trophy for a club like Raith Rovers at the time, it was a great achievement and a big achievement, and it's one that sort of sticks in the memory bank.
Do these kind of landmarks mean anything to you in terms of a kind of historical context? I'm working on my brain here, but I think it was 1963 was the last semi-final we were at before that, and then you're playing in the next Raith Rovers team to make that. You spoke a lot, and we'll speak more about moving past the 500 mark. Are these things that actually give you a real kind of moment of pride when you're maybe just not feeling at your strongest?
I think when I actually stopped playing, I'm surprised I'm still playing, being 37, but I think when I actually look back playing, I think a lot of people say that, and look back on it and think that's actually quite a good achievement, as much as, alright, the next step was the final, but to get to the biggest trophy in our National League, which is the Scottish semi-final, is a big deal. So I think when I look back and I think, yeah, that's not bad for a local lad leading his team out in a semi-final at 25,000 or whatever it was. So again, it probably is a nice achievement, and it's one of the better ones in my time at Raith, yeah.
You then went off for Pastures New and headed up the road to Dundee, but it wasn't that long, relatively speaking, until you were back in Kirkcaldy. Ironically, a Dundee United legend that brought you back, Ray McKinnon. A successful season. What stands out? I mean, there's one game in particular burned in the mind of Raith Rovers fans.
It was just literally, I was kind of floating about that pre-season after just leaving Dundee and enjoying my time there, and as I say, probably at the right time, it was maybe time for a nice change. And I do remember John going to Hearts, and I'd already signed a pre-contract at Dundee that John's wanted to take me to Hearts, but me, probably a loyal person that I was, I'd agreed with Barry. So, but no, as soon as I got the phone call for Ray, it was a bit of a no-brainer to go back. Again, just thinking in the long term, I was like, it'd be nice to go back there and do a few years and maybe get the 2 stints at a testimonial, because Laurie Ellis, that know really well, had done the 3 stints. So again, that was in the back of my mind. So as soon as I'd heard about Ray's interest, it was a bit of a no-brainer really. I had a few other offers on the Championship and stuff at the time, but it was definitely the right call, because we went on to have a very good season under Ray, and I'd say it was just a pity that Ray couldn't stay really, but I suppose again when you do well and then the bigger clubs come sniffing, Ray being a Dundee boy went on to Dundee United, so no, obviously in the playoffs eventually losing out to Hibs, winning the first game, we gave ourselves a half a chance, but the second game they were probably too big an ask for us really.
What about the 3-3 Rangers game?
Yeah, wow, how can I forget that? Wearing the green that I've got on. I had the green boots on that day as well actually. No, listen, you've got one of the biggest clubs in Scotland coming for a party celebration, title celebration, well supposedly. It was just an incredible game to be involved in. Full house. I mean, you have to give respect to Rangers fans coming and packing Starks Park, thinking it was going to be their return back to the SPL. And it was just nice to delay it, yeah, it was just an incredible end to the match, and I remember it because I had involvement in the actual equaliser, putting the cross in, and then Harry, was it, you pronounce Harry's second name for me? Harry Paniato, who was a lovely lad on loan to Leicester to then stick the ball in the net, so listen, that's one game that will stick in my mind for a long time. I packed out Starks Park where Rangers, all I had to do was try and win the game to bounce back, but we managed to delay that in a 3-3 draw, so that was a nice day.
I mean, that's one of the things about Raith Rovers, and we'll speak about some of the shenanigans that go on around about the club. We are a club of real highs and lows, is that you have a team of the enormity. Rangers come, pack out the stadium. Locally, you'll know that pubs work and advertise and come and be part of the title party. We miss a penalty in the 90th minute, and then we somehow dig out the equaliser that felt like we had qualified for Europe. I remember after the game going to get Harry for the press, and there was a woman kind of handing him her baby and getting a picture of Harry with the baby, and I'm thinking this is otherworldly. Yeah. And maybe clubs at the top end of the Premier might look at that and think, oh, that's silly, but actually it's not. It's
a big deal. It's a big deal for a club like Raith Rovers, because like you say, that's why it's important that you want to play in the top league, because you bring your Celtics and your Rangers and your Hibs and Hearts locally. For everybody financially, it's just so much better, and it's just disappointing that we can't have more people locally that come down to Starks Park instead of going elsewhere. But no, listen, it was a big day. We managed to stop a title party. So I mean, a massive club like Rangers, of course, that's a big moment for a club like Raith Rovers. So no, it's definitely a day that I won't forget.
As you mentioned, Ray moved on to a new challenge for himself, and then we moved into the Gary Locke season, or part season rather, Nera. Gary and John Hughes, who took over, there's so much we probably could speak about in that, and I think obviously respect is something that you're kind of big on in terms of speaking about people who have been part of your footballing journey. My first question would be about, with hindsight, John Hughes came in and we were all thinking this is a great appointment, this is a guy with an incredible career and CV. Looking back, were the team in a position that you think if Gary had held on at the end of the season we might have just got over the line?
As we know, hindsight's the greatest thing in the world, isn't it? We only won in 13 games, was it, if that's right? That's why John come in. Again, Gary, and a good man actually, a good man, good coach. Maybe not a manager. Jacko, again, good coach. Their training and stuff was ideal. It was sad to see them go, but we all have a part to play in that as regards players and stuff like that. And then John coming in, again, very enthusiastic to begin with, but tried to get us to play a certain style. You could only play with the tools that you've got, and the way that he wanted, with the greatest respect to the players that we had, we weren't good enough. I mean, we were sort of down towards the bottom of the table and tried to get us to play like Barcelona. Again, we didn't have the individuals on the team to do that. So John, again, I think for the first few weeks really tried. And then I think after a certain while he realised that these guys they can't do what I'm asking them, and they're not good enough. And I could see the decline coming. And me, in hindsight, I think myself and maybe Jason Thompson, Kevin Cuthbert, a few senior boys had spoken about it briefly, about saying, look, maybe need to go and speak to directors here and say, look, maybe just get someone else in, a Craig Easton and a Kevin Cuthbert, get us over the finishing line to end the season, just make sure we stay up. And I think if that had been the case, even after Gary's departure, there was still plenty of time left. I would definitely say that was the lowest point in my life, losing at home to Brecon, because I seen it coming and I felt as though we probably could have done something or suggested something to the people above us, and that was definitely the lowest day of my Raith Rovers career for sure.
In being Raith Rovers, there's always a cherry on top of the cherry of the cake, where we also loan out our bright young talent Lewis Vaughan, who scores, I think he maybe got 5 goals for Dumbarton, all of which secured points. We play a game with big centre forward and goals.
Scores a goal away to Dundee United that keeps them up.
Is there a club like this one?
It was, if everything could go wrong, even on and off the pitch, that was it. That was, again, great respect of certain people's decisions, that when they do the contracts, they've got to make sure they're doing them right. You don't mind loaning a boy out, but Dumbarton were, at the time, were always round about the bottom, and to loan him out to Dumbarton, and our best player, who then goes on to secure Dumbarton's first championship status, was so strange. It just summed the whole season up.
But the goalkeeping situation, we've got Pavel Pinks is suspended. We've got, if I remember correctly, we'll have Aaron Lennox had a quite significant injury to his jaw. Young Rory couldn't play because there was a kind of development fee would have had to be paid. But we turn up at a game, all of us turn up at a game thinking, I actually watched you coming out in the bus looking for a face that I didn't recognise. I remember a game years earlier where we had the lad Fleming come in and played against, I think it was Partick Thistle, because we had a run of injuries. He played one game, fine, I think it was the Challenge Cup. But nobody appeared out of the bus, and even to the point of, if we got a pair of gloves for the goalkeeper. But we still defended our position of, well, there's nothing we could do, but clearly we could have.
It just, again, you don't know what's going on behind the scenes as a player, but it actually didn't sink into me till we went pre-match that evening at Fenwick Hotel on the way down. I was like, and there was talk of it, and I was like, oh my God, this is actually really happening. I says, this is a first for me in my footballing career, seeing an outfield player actually playing goals. And I was still thinking, no, someone's going to turn up at the hotel here on loan, or, like I say, there's always options. But again, it makes you think behind, had there really been done, could they do everything they could have possibly done to get someone in? So again, it was another situation where you're thinking, it just doesn't look good. It just looks so unprofessional, and as I say, unfortunately it summed that season up, and it ended up being disastrous for us.
I've got a kind of separate section here where I was struck that, looking at your stats, that 4 seasons in a row you were involved in some form of playoff. And I don't think they were over the piece very kind to us, really. You mentioned the Hibs one, we had you mentioned the Brecon City one, which is of course a low point for us all. We've all got a lasting memory of seeing people that we cared for at the club, really not in a good way after it, and include players that I've seen post-match. We then move on, and you mentioned Barry Smith earlier. Barry comes up the road to Kirkcaldy, and it's the width of a post that stops us from winning the league, and then the harshness of the playoffs for Raith Rovers stop us progressing. What's your memories of that time and working with Barry and his team? Again,
Barry was a guy that I respected really well, because he actually signed me from Raith Rovers, and he was the manager of Dundee at the time, so he signed me, so as a guy that I knew well and really respected, and again a more quieter individual. To be fair, Barry sort of more kept himself, but it wasn't for the lack of hard work on the training pitch. Again, really well organised and prepared well, and boys loved his training, and I think boys liked Barry. But as I say, the fractions of sport and Louis Vaughan, I'm thinking, well, I header this in the goal, but I'm thinking, no, I'll header it down to Louis Vaughan, our best player, and let him do the business. And we joke about it now and again, but at the time it wasn't joking. But that is football. It's decisions change games, change lives, things like that, and that's literally at that time that was what happened. But I just remember the thing that sunk in the most was that evening at Dean Park Hotel, the player here. Wow, it was like a morgue, wasn't it? It was just so subdued, and it was weird because there was still a chance of being promoted, but it was, we thought it was going to happen there, didn't we? Over 4,500, something like that, was it that day?
Yeah, people being walked around because the stand was full. It was the exact counterpoint to what was spoken in terms of the Rangers game, where actually, was it some days you're the dog, some days you're the lamppost, and we know what we were that day.
I was just so quietly confident as a player that it was going to happen, but but like I say, with their post stops us from being automatically promoted. And yeah, just as I say, the players' presentation that evening was a very weird atmosphere, and again, you try to be really positive, but looking back on it, I think going into Alloa game, Alloa I think had the advantage because we had just went for sort of almost winning a league to going from an extreme high to an extreme low, and we just went in the game, and I think on a bit of a downer, and it was no surprise that again that the playoffs, we lost out in the playoff to Alloa, to be fair.
We then seen kind of Barry departed, and we again were looking back into the management pool, and Mr McGlynn becomes available, Smudger comes along, and what's your thoughts at that time?
I was a wee bit annoyed with John, I must admit, because he never told me. I could at least got a bet on it at the bookies. So that was, I come as a big surprise. I did hear a day or two before it was going to be an ex-player or an ex-manager. So yeah, I was sort of battling my mind at who it could be and whatnot, and obviously I kept in touch with John on a regular basis every couple of weeks, even though both of us maybe weren't at Raith Rovers when John was working at Celtic, I was at Dundee. But I basically remember sort of seeing him the day that he arrived, and there was a bit of a shoulder badge in the corridor, and then a big hug. So yeah, we just know each other really well, and again I was delighted to see him back. I thought if anybody again is going to get us out of this League One at the time, this was the right appointment, and I think the fans sensed that, and again it's proven to be the right choice.
We came close in the small matter of Stephen Dobie and Lyndon Dykes for Queen of the South. It's not a bad strike force that put us to the sword in the first playoff, but we then kind of bounced back. Tell us about the season that we led for such a significant period in terms of sitting at the top of the table, but the circumstances of our league win were otherworldly with the pandemic coming. What was that period of time like for you as players? Uncertainty, you didn't know if you were going to play the whole league again, part of the league, no one was going up, two teams. How did you process that? Because we forget as fans, this is your livelihood, this is your family, this is your car payments, your mortgage. How do you just keep ticking forward?
I think you covered the word yourself, Davey, really. The word's uncertainty, really. I think that covered all bases, and we would probably find out as much as we did when media would find out, or fans would, really. We would maybe find out, we would have a group chat with a gaffer, and he was trying to keep us updated as best as possible. And what I do remember is having a conversation with John McGlynn on maybe a Thursday evening, because we were due to travel to Peterhead, wasn't it, for the Saturday game, but we're going to travel up on the Friday afternoon, so I would have been training midday and then travelling up on the bus to stay overnight. And I remember having a conversation with John on the Thursday night saying, Davo, what do I do? This could be the last game on Saturday, potentially the last game because of the way things are supposedly going to go. He says, do I tell them that this is the last game and it'll make them play an extra 5-10%, or do I say nothing? And I was just kind of put on the spot, and I was actually stuck for words to begin with, but I just remember I was like, no Gaffer, I think you have to tell them. I said, because if you don't and it doesn't go the way you want, I said, you might regret that. So that was literally, that's what I do remember at the time of that, and then obviously the game never even actually happened. So thankfully that we were top of the league, because that was the way they ended up doing it. And I understand Falkirk's grievances, we would be the same. I mean, that was us all season, the 2 years really, with the greatest respect. It was always going to be us two full-time teams, and there wasn't much between us. We drew every league game we played against each other. So listen, it would have been, the fair outcome would have been, for me, I think maybe speaking to Bill Clark about it, 2 up and no relegations, change things up. I think it was a good time to change the leagues instead of being the way it's been. It would have been a nice time to change it, and I just think no relegations and 2 promotions would have kept everybody happy. That would have been the fairest way for me, because Hearts they feel aggrieved, and I think Partick Thistle did, because they're sitting second bottom and they've got games in hand. So they were in a situation where they probably can get themselves out of that situation. But thankfully for us, it kind of worked in our favour. But we didn't want that as players, as a group of players. We couldn't have celebrated due to COVID anyway, but it was very subdued. It was one of the weirdest situations I've ever experienced, but at the end of the day it benefited us being back in the Championship where we deservedly to be, I thought, on the course of basically that season, because I think we had the most points and we're top of the league the most season consistently. So yeah, I think in the end we deserved it really, but no, it definitely wasn't the way we wanted to be promoted.
Do you take more pride or enjoyment from last season than the one that you actually won the league?
I would say so. Because as much, again, it still wasn't a full season. We played 27 games, is it? And listen, last season to come back up and produce the football we did and be involved in the squad that I did, it was probably one of the best squads I've been involved in. A John McGlynn second era, I played in a very good first one round with a Graham Weir and a Kevin Smith and a Stephen Simmons and Mark Campbell and Marvin Andrews and all that. Those guys, that was a very good John McGlynn squad. But that one last year, unfortunately, not just to finish second, maybe just cost us as well. Playing that extra 2 games is a big factor. It is a very, very big factor, whether you like it or not. And again, I think it probably proved that in the 2 playoff games against Dundee. I think they just seemed a bit fresher. But over the course of the seasons, I think it was just a pity again that the fans couldn't be there to enjoy us, because that was just so enjoyable as a player. I enjoyed it more than anything because I was thinking, could this be my last season as a player? And for the way that we played, especially having to take a ball in a 6-yard box, knowing if you make a mistake, it results in a goal. But you had to be brave. You had to be brave and take that ball 6, 7, 8 yards out. And that was the way John wanted to start and build for the back. And obviously he'd learnt a lot under Brendan Rodgers. And John speaks about him very highly and says he's the best coach he's ever worked under. And you could see that John's come back as a better coach as well. And that proved on the football pitch for Raith Rovers last season.
It certainly a different John McGlynn who came back for his second tenure. I'm sure he would agree with that. I was speaking with Todd Lumsden in one of the half-time features, and he watched a few of the games on RaithTV, catching up with where things were at, and one of the things that just made him smile was, he says, could you ever imagine, you were around at that time, David, and obviously Iain, you were playing at the time, can you imagine Todd, Marvin, Sparky, yourself passing the ball about, and John's reaction at that moment? Now he's the prophet of this is how we go about our business, but how do you think he might have reacted if that's how you had started playing at the time?
I would love to have seen his face, just a moment back then in his first spell with a Marvin Andrews, a Todd Lumsden or a Mark Campbell or even myself taking the ball out, because we just never ever done that back then. We just never played out. We were more direct and played the opposition's half, and we were more organised and well drilled. But it was a total different John McGlynn that came back for working at Celtic, and he came back a bit more chilled as well, which was good to see. But listen, he's still so intense. His intensity is incredible, and I mean, the man is just a workaholic. I've never seen anything like it. So he sleeps and breathes football, he does, and I think everything that he gets as a result as a manager he deserves, because I see what he does behind the scenes, and probably you will as well, David, at the end of the day, and there's a lot of people that don't, but yeah, he's just a workaholic. And for him to change from one extreme to another now, but as a player it was so enjoyable. And if you've got a Regan Hendry in there, or a Brad Spencer, you kind of have to play football. But listen, the boys, whatever way we played, whatever formation we done, the boys, again, for the group of boys that we did, we adapted no bother. Even in the League One season we done it really well, whatever formation it was. And last season again, it's just whatever John threw at us, the boys adapted. So I think that comes from what we were saying earlier on. I think he tries to get the right balance right as the right group of players, and try and make sure you don't have any bad eggs and things like that, really. And I think I've been quite lucky in John McGlynn teams. I've never really experienced that type of thing, and that is a big thing in football.
One of the things that you said to me, and we were setting up this interview, and we've had 3 or 4 false starts with just the way life's evolved, and it's what you've said in the past, is just ask me anything. Within it being the realms of the club's official TV channel, Ask Me Anything. So for me, one of the questions that I went down my stats on was your disciplinary record. I want to ask you about a particular comment. You mentioned Barry Smith earlier on, and people sometimes kind of look back at interviews that we done with Barry who didn't really like being in front of the camera and misread that as, oh, he was quite short. We actually experienced quite the opposite. So I was glad to hear you say that you enjoyed working with him, because we did as well. But what Barry said was, if it wasn't for discipline being an issue at times, Iain Davidson wouldn't be here playing for me. How much do you think it's held you back?
Yeah, again, I've probably never had a football agent either, so maybe that's probably another reason why I've never the agents, as I say, they're a big part of football, but I was always just kind of looking after myself. And if a club always wanted you, they would probably get you. And I think John McGlynn was always wanted me, and he was a big part of why I'd all sort of spent so many years at Raith Rovers. So, but yeah, discipline unfortunately is a negative. There's a good few there where they were totally unnecessary. That's for sure. And again, over the course of how long I've played, a lot of them will be double yellow cards turning into red, missed time tackles and things like that. But there's definitely maybe 3 or 4 that have been unnecessary. And being on a football pitch, I always wanted to give everything I did, and I played on the edge. And I think at times I definitely could have helped myself, but I think there's many footballers who have played on the edge. But if you take that away from them, do you get the same out of them as a player? There's always that element as well. But no, there's definitely times I think where John McGlynn especially tried to pull me aside, and we looked at things to try and help me and stuff with regards to that, the fiery sort of person that I was. And I say John, that's why I respect him quite a lot, because he always tried to do the best for me, really.
Let's look at some urban legends, or are there urban legends with regard to your career? One of the things that's a bit of a kind of trope in Kirkcaldy, I don't think you'll sit in a pub with Raith Rovers fans and mention Iain Davidson without this coming up, and that's the notion that Iain Davidson likes Christmas Day and Boxing Day off. So this is particular interest. I asked 1 or 2 of your former teammates to drop me some messages, and a well-known adopted Fifer, Kyle Benedicta, said, ask him about Christmas, So we've done some homework, and over the 14 seasons there was 40 games that spanned the week before, the week after Christmas and New Year. Of those 40 games, how many do you think you... Well, let's go to the red hot question. How many do you think you missed suspended? Out of 40 games. 40 so we all know the statement, Davo doesn't do the festive period.
I'm going to say just more than half.
Give me a number, Iain.
24.
You think you'll be suspended for 24 out of 40 games?
I hope so.
Right. You want to hold on to that thing that's beside you, because you might fall off this. You were suspended for 7.
Oh.
7. Of the 40, you played 27. You were sub for 4, came on in 2 of the games, so technically you played 29. You were injured for 2, and you were suspended for 7 out of the 40 games. So I might have just put that to bed for you.
Thank you, David.
Okay, you're very welcome.
Nice to know. It's not as bad as I thought. I must admit, I thought it was a lot worse than that.
Okay, 507 games. How many times do you think you've been an unused sub? We'll give you 3 numbers, 9, 26 or 14. An unused sub across 14 seasons.
I'm going to go for the birthday date of mine. I'm going to say 14.
It's 14. Decent start. That tells you quite a bit about the faith that your managers and your teammates have got in you.
That is a good start. That's a nice one to know. I actually never knew that, and that's good to know. Yeah, I'm pleased with that.
We've got we're going to collect some other more kind of general questions just to lighten the load a wee bit. So fire some quick ones at you. We're speaking with Liam Buchanan for his half-time piece, and he was sharing that he played at all of the Scottish football grounds. You must be close to that. Any are you missing?
I think the only ones that I would be not played so much as, I played majority of my seasons in Championship and League 1 really, so I'm going to say probably there'd be a few in League 2 really. I don't think I've ever had a season in there, so I've had 1 season in the SPL. So I would just probably say maybe the majority of League 2 really.
We'll be pass that back to our stats guy and get back to you. What about memorable grounds in the wider sense? We've mentioned Hampden. I remember our previous interview where you were telling us about playing at the Old Highbury.
That was my time at Sunderland as a youth player. The Old Highbury, it was just a bowling green. Incredible surface to play on, and that was a team at the time that had some big names, Maurice Volz, Jimmy Pennant. Oh, I've kind of went black, but they had an unbelievable youth team, and I think they possibly went on it to win that year. So that was a nice experience in playing at Highbury. That's one of the ones as a youth player when I was at Sunderland that stood out.
Most memorable goal?
Oh.
Or favourite goal?
The best strike that I've ever hit was probably his man, and as Doug was watching it, was away to Stranraer. It was a half volley right on the angle for maybe about 26 yards. That's probably the best strike. My favourite goal, probably coming on as a sub against Dunfermline at the start of the season. I think was at the end of the day going to win that season, that league. Was it that season? That was the most memorable one because we went on to win the game. And to be fair, I think I come on and I done really well, and I like to think I changed the game. That sounds Raith and Iain Davidson changing the game, but no, that sort of stands out because again, more or less, it was jam-packed, there was a great buzz and I scored the goal, but we went on to win the game, so that's one.
Gregory scored the winner?
Gregory scored the winner, aye. I think.
The goal, wasn't he?
Yes. I think John Baird set him up, I played John Baird and John Baird put him through. Was that the New Year one?
So it wasn't your goal in the Scottish Brewers Cup up at Annan?
Up at Annan?
Wow. What about your East Fife volley? That was one I thought you might have picked.
That was recent times, that was a decent hit.
Did you hear John McGlynn's voice in your head saying get over the ball as you're hitting it?
I was just concentrating on hitting the target if anything, and I think then they just went on to score the winner, did they?
What about, I'm going to jump straight on because I know you're on the clock here for getting back for your tea. Favourite strip, worst strip?
Favourite strip?
That you've played with, obviously, Rover strips.
Favourite strip? The yellow one. No, I'm joking. I quite like last year's, believe it or not. I know it because it's fresh, but I really liked last year's. I thought that was a cracker. The worst. Oh wow. I think there's been a few, isn't there?
There's been a few.
The worst. I'm going to say the yellow one actually. The yellow and black.
Okay. Influences and big characters in the dressing room, just kind of being on the periphery of that footballing world. I see how supportive the dressing room can be, how vital it is to a good team, but also you've got to be a strong character, even as a young laddie to go in there. Who are the big characters that have shaped dressing rooms that you've been in, and who's looked after you in the dressing room?
If I go back to sort of my first stint in John McGlynn era, again, Mark Campbell, big character, big lad, but big character. Martin Andrews, exactly the same. Alan Walker, as we know, not shy. Stephen Simmons, not shy. They were all interesting guys. Kevin Smith, who was on loan for Dundee United, quite a nice guy, but no shy. Craig Wilson, again, right back. Laurie was a big character. Again, probably Laurie was one who was, I think you could see he would go on to do well as a coach, and he has. I think Laurie was always one who sort of put me aside when I was a young boy, my first stint at Raith. So recently, Kyle Benedictus, to be fair, what can I say? He's my mate, but he's a character. He's full of nonsense, but again, for me, very underrated. Doesn't get the credit he deserves. Brad Spencer's a character. He likes a laugh. Dan Armstrong wasn't shy last year. Dylan Tate is the guys I think he'd been in that car school with him, making that Ouija thing. Glaswegians, they're no shy, but
he has a swagger, doesn't he?
He does. They've got a thing here where I just think that they're no shy, but he's good. I think he's going to go on to have a good career. Ross Matthews he's a wee wind-up merchant, no. Regan Hendry, actually, surprisingly, when he came back last year, he came out of Shell the year before. When he was on loan, he was so quiet, and then he came back and this different guy who, again, he was actually, because I think how good he was as a player and his confidence then maybe came out as a character. But yeah, Benny's probably the one that stands out sort of the last few years, to be fair.
It seems a great wee bit of the world where sometimes players who carry so much responsibility on a Saturday in front of so many local people maybe don't need to actually grow up through the week. You've got that kind of schoolboy element that always seems to be present when I overhear some of the nonsense.
Again, as life's all about balance, and even in a football circle, it's about balance. You need to have that intensity, that seriousness, but at the same time, you have to have that laugh and joke. And you have to, a football changing room is a make or break. I think you just touched on that a few minutes ago, and as a young lad it could make or break you, and I've seen a few people crumble and without being over the top, but you have to, unfortunately, it's where you become a man. If you're going to give out, you need to take likewise. So, but it's the one thing I think when I retire, it's the one thing that you're going to miss as a football changing room, and you hear everybody say it, and it's just a fact that it's a place where everything goes on.
Tell me a wee bit about local boy syndrome. That's something that we speak amongst ourselves as Rovers fans, that it seems to be at times particularly difficult for lads who belong to this area. you've gone for the world of you only get your criticism, your feedback in Asda to social media, and everybody's an armchair psychologist. Any memorable interactions with fans? How do you deal with it?
Strangely enough, I've never come close to blows in Kirkcaldy. Not that you want, but no. Listen, I think in my first stint, I think when things went badly wrong, I was such a young boy at 19, 20. That was when I found it the most difficult, because I didn't realise that was what was going on. That playing for the local team and being in the public eye, it was. When I was young, it was tough, and as I got older, like you think, right, if I've played badly, I'll take the criticism, or I've done wrong. When you're being in the wrong, you have to be big enough and ugly enough to hold your hands up. But I think it's just a lot of times that I just think I've maybe not been appreciated. That's tough to take. But listen, it's an opinionated game, and whether it's good or bad, but as long as it's constructive criticism is all I would say. But no, listen, being a local lad, as I say, I've said it many times and I'll say it has its pluses and it has its minuses. Because if you're going shopping at Asda's or wherever it may be and you're walking about a town, at the end of the day, people will notice you. You'll be the easy target, or if it's no went wrong, you're on the firing line. The boys in Edinburgh or Glasgow are not going to get that, because state the obvious, they're not living local. But no, I think when I come back for the second stint, that I was more mature, more rounded, and probably better to deal with really the second time round. But no, I think as the last few years, it's definitely not been nowhere near as bad as what it was when I was in my first spell when I was younger.
So you're not aware of the 300 pages on football forums about how dare he go for Acosta when we've just been beat 1-0?
No, I'm not aware of that. No, that's why I don't do social media.
Tell me about, so we've covered chaos, drama, the surreal, high points, low points. Let's venture into the real dark zone. You played for a trialist as Dunfermline. What was that all about?
No one else wanted me, sadly. I was waiting on that Raith Rovers call, but it come too late, didn't it? But no, that again, to be fair, that was through John Potter really, and Alan Johnson. But again, it was obviously I'd left Dundee. I'd had a few offers from a Queen of the South, a Greenock Morton, things that are probably geography-wise that weren't really suiting me. A few part-time offers, and Dunfermline being along the road, as we know, I thought, yeah, I'll go on a long train there. And I think it wasn't into the second week when eventually, thankfully, I got the phone call through Ray about coming in, and then, yeah, there's no looking back now, yeah. I
have to say that when we spoke to you just at the time you came back, you referred to Dunfermline as the neighbours, and from that point, that's the phrase we've always used in our commentary as well. We just think it's a bit of fun, and it's got a wee bit of edgy respect to it as well.
Just a bit tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah, so you mentioned about the opportunity possibly to go to Hearts, and you mentioned a couple of kind of similar level teams to Raith Rovers. Are there any offers that you had that you regret not taking?
Not really, because again, I've never had an agent, and I think, as we know in the football world, and especially the way it's been for 20, 30 years, they're the guys that help you get the moves and put you out there, blah blah blah. But I've never really had been inundated with loads of offers to go elsewhere or abroad and things like that, because it's just never happened, because I've kind of looked after myself. So I say Hearts only come about because the John McGlynn that left Raith to go to Hearts that summer, and I went on to go to Dundee, so I'd already signed the pre-contract. So being a loyal man, I couldn't really say no to Barry. So, but no, John, as I say, probably biggest club wise, that was probably the best that I've probably really had a chance to go to. So
near the end, a couple of questions from people who actually understand football rather than me. So the first is from a Mr. Paul Smith. Iain, after a long and distinguished career, what advice would you pass on to our younger players, and do you have any advice for me and the gaffer?
I think Paul gets a word in for the gaffer. I think the gaffer just shoots Paul's opinion down. No, any advice? Again, I think when I was a youngster in the garden, kicking the ball off the wall constantly, left and right foot, practice. Just don't give up on your dreams. Like, when you look at Cristiano Ronaldo, he's the model pro, and Messi's probably the best player in the world I've ever seen. So these young kids have to look up to these guys and think that's what they could achieve. You don't let anybody say you're not good enough. Just make sure you practice, and as long as you're enjoying it is the main thing. Is that the advice I would give?
Any advice for John Paul? You did offer a listening ear across the last season and a bit.
No, I'm not going to say nothing because I'll get held against me. Nah, especially the gaffer. You've not even letting that live down, so no, I'm going to keep quiet.
Taking the pass on that one. Okay, the second question is from Mr. John McGlynn of Walliford. What was the highlight of your time while playing under our management? Tell me about a game, a moment, or a time.
But there's so many under John. So many highs under John. I suppose the one that stands out, we touched on earlier, probably winning the league at Hampden. You know what I mean? You've worked hard for a course of a season, been the most consistent team, and to be promoted at the National Stadium, it was icing on the cake that season. So that's the one that stands out. Again, we've touched on the semi-final under John and Paul. I'm trying to think of an individual game that stands out the most under them. Honestly, a memory like a sieve, it's so bad.
Can you think of even a moment where, and you might not even want to share this, so you can just kind of nod if it's the case, where you just think of a moment and think, that's a moment that they got me. They had my back. They saw me as a person.
I did, probably touching back on the Albion Rovers incident. I would say that was when John, I think, realised how much he meant to me, and I think John knew that you had a player there, but at the same time you had a guy who had discipline issues, but because he's producing for me in training and games on a Saturday, like I want him to be part of my success, and I think that's when I knew how much John meant to me and I meant to him, and as I say, he's like a father figure to me, really.
My phone pinged there with a late arrival for the question, so the last question from a football source, so it's another double question. The first question is, how good is Kyle Benedictus? And the second question is, who is the best player at Raith Rovers you have played with? In brackets, is it Kyle Benedictus?
He's the best centre half I've played with. Best player I've played with. Oh shit, boy. I remember picking my Raith Rovers 11 was, oh my god. I got a few texts after that, mind you.
So you've done that for social media, but we're going to come back, and maybe in a month or two we'll get a wee bit break, and we're going to do a wee feature where we'll go through.
That'll be good, because I think I got a bit of stick for putting myself in, but again, that was just a bit tongue-in-cheek at the time, flinging myself in there. But Benny's, as I say, I've already said, covered Benny. Benny's very underrated. Best player I've played with.
Give us a defender, a midfielder, a striker, because you're comparing apples and oranges, aren't you?
Oh, defender wise, again, two-man mountains. I think Todd's a wee bit unlucky because Sparky and Marv are just two giants and two massive characters as well, so it's hard to pick between the two. It's the no-nonsense centre-halves that would never lose a header, you wouldn't want to go on a 50-50 with. Midfield wise, played with some really good midfielders, Stephen Simmons, Alan Walker. Who else have I played with in there? But probably most recently, technically gifted, would be Regan Hendry. Forwards, been lucky in that sense. Again, touched on earlier, Graham Weir, Kevin Smith, Gary Wales. Finishers, Gregory Taddy, John Baird. Wow. Again, I can't wait on the text messages coming when I've missed somebody out. But that probably wasn't for injuries, probably Louis Vaughan. He's, again, technically is the one that stands out ability-wise. So I have been quite spoiled when I think about it, really.
Yeah, I think we all have, actually. We'll come back to that. We'll do the kind of Davo 11 in a month or so. Last question, I guess, from myself is, how would you like to be remembered, the Raith Rovers fans?
A very good player, yeah. A very good footballer who was good service, loyal to the club, and whether I played centre mid, centre back, tried his best, gave everything, and majority of times done really well. That'd be nice to be remembered and fondly that way, and that would mean the most to me, really. Yeah, that would mean a lot.
I mean, the kind of start that we'll finish with just does emphasise in this club that we've got in our blood that you really are standing in amongst giants. Willie McNaught, 658 games, Andy Young, 622. And Iain Davidson with 507. You can move past Murray McDermott, who moves into fourth and 498. You know the town, you know the team, you know the history. These are giants, and you're shoulder to shoulder with them.
Yeah, I think maybe further down the line, maybe it's because it's just happened, but I would like to think maybe further down the line that would be that would be spoken about in their legacy, that the service, and I already covered the loyalty that I've given the club and the two stints that I've had would make me immensely proud, really.
You want to sign off an interview, and I'll just let you have a word with Raith Rovers fans, and I guess all of us as the Raith Rovers community. Tell us what it's all meant to you.
First and foremost, I would like to say thank you for your support over my 14 years in the two spells. It's been an honour and a privilege to play for my local town. A lot of them highs and lows, but like I say, I can get a nice send-off on Friday night against Hibs. It's just a pity there's only 1,000 G's coming, because I think it could have been a lot more there. There's a bit of frustration there that we can't get more there, but it is what it is due to the pandemic. If you can't get to the game, it'd be nice if you could tune in. But yeah, it'd be nice to get a good send-off, and I'd just like to say thank you for everything. And I say it's a pity that you couldn't be there last year in the good season that we had in the Championship, but you'll be coming back, and make sure you support the boys and stick by them even through thick and thin. And I say just be there. There's nothing more important in a football club than fans, and without fans there's no football club. So yeah, just look forward to the future, and you are in good hands with John McGlynn and Paul Smith, and I think behind the scenes these guys, Iain and David, and people that we don't see that put all the hard work in, the volunteers, thank you very much, and I wish you all the best.
Thanks very much, Davo.
No problem.